optimistic. I was amused when Visa Europe came out and said that by the year 2020, half of their transactions in Europe will be processed on mobile devices. But I also want to share with you a quote from someone that I respect, David Evans, who's the founder of Market Platform Dynamics, and as many of you know, is probably one of the leading gurus. But here's what he said late last year. Using the mobile phone at the point of sale isn't really compelling for consumers, and that's a fundamental problem, okay? Now, I suspect our panelists disagree, so if you could, if David Evans were sitting here and had just made that comment, how would you respond? Isn't compelling for consumers. What is it that makes mobile payment, mobile commerce compelling for consumers?
So I'll start off with that, actually. And this might sound funny coming from the payments processor, but I would tell you I wouldn't disagree. So the analogy I would give you is contactless cards, right? So you have to look at this and think about this in the context of, you know, where is their value to a consumer, right? And there have been many millions of contactless cards that have been in the marketplace for years now. I'd probably venture a guess and say many of the folks in the audience probably have one or two contactless cards in your wallet. But the reality is it doesn't really solve a problem, right? The ability to tap my card doesn't really, you know, move me through my checkout any faster than my ability to swipe. So I think, you know, if David were saying that with sort of a look back over, you know, where mobile payment or a contactless payment has been, I really don't think that there's any real step function kind of value that's been delivered to a consumer. The kinds of things that you've heard from several of the panelists around how mobile commerce begins to really drive a strong value proposition, right, with the ability to not only check out but to redeem a number of different incentives. Now you're starting to, now you're talking, right? The ability to leverage the data in a well-structured, permission-based kind of model there, where data and analytics can be valuable to me as a consumer, both in terms of, you know, what I'm targeted and how I use it. So it saves me time, it saves me money. It gives me advantages that, you know, frankly may have nothing to do with a discount or a money off, right? It may have everything to do with, you know, me getting certain advantages to bust a line and those kinds of things. So, you know, as we kind of approached, you know, the mobile payments in general, you know, going back three and a half years ago, you know, we kind of looked at it, and I think rightly we kind of surmised pretty quickly it wasn't about sort of the contactless part of it. You know, the card works, the magnetic stripe card, and certainly there are limitations of that from a security perspective, but, you know, in terms of the checkout piece, it works. This is about really truly wrapping together payments with the kinds of things that will drive value in a much broader sense.
Okay. Others want to chime in, and as you relate to this point, if you could pinpoint problems that mCommerce or mPayments are solving today, that would be helpful as well. So please continue. Great, Tom, thank you.
So we all know that today there are probably 1.5 billion contactless cards. We also probably read that there are probably 3.7 or 4 point something billion devices. So the time is right, and as we all know, we don't want to carry multiple contactless cards, you know, in our wallet. And now we have the opportunity to merge these. But we go beyond that, because now, you know, you can either use NFC payment or 2D barcode payment, or you probably see in the future, you're going to also see a combination of Bluetooth payment, right? So, and along with that, you have the loyalty, reward, you know, and the discounts that you can offer in real time, because everything is one device.
The average consumer, I believe I've read, don't quote me, but I believe I've read that the average consumer is enrolled in something like 11 loyalty programs. That's a lot of cards to carry in your wallet, and of course, it is difficult to manage, so good point. Anything else you'd add to this?
Yeah, I just add that I personally think that we're way too focused on the actual processing of the payment. And I think the real value that mobile brings to the consumer is fundamentally changing, you know, the shopping experience. And so, you know, just as a use case, you know, something that you know, we're exploring at NCR, you know, imagine taking your phone And as you shop down the grocery store, you're scanning the items yourself. There is no checkout. By the time you're done, you press "I'm done," and you walk out the door. And that's it. Payments is just the last bit in a broader experience for the consumer. And so I think all this focus on, there's a lot of technology and a lot of cool stuff around swiping your phone, but that's just one small piece of what the real value prop's going to be for the consumer.
Okay?
So I'll finish this up. I think that what is a payment, is one of the items that, has to be, explored. And a payment is obviously not just the waving of a card. And then I would say, what is the definition of a checkout? And so for all of us here today that parked and we've got to go through the kiosk when we go to check out, why can't we just sit here on our phone and go ahead and pay? And when we go to the checkout, we just hold our phone up and we drive on out, and it's been paid. So in Korea, we have a term here in the U.S. where there is no coupon left behind. And so in Korea, the phone and the technology is built to where the coupons are stored on the device. The point of sale is what I consider to be a smarter point of sale, and the sniffing of the phone occurs when you're transacting, and they're pulling the coupons that apply going forward. And the checkout that I explained in the parking lot, that occurs today, in Korea. So when you go and park, you can identify your parking space. You can go ahead and pay the meter electronically through the cloud and move on. And so, again, going back to, is mobile going to make it more convenient? Is it going to be compelling? Yes, it is. Because the reason we carry smartphones is because we have so many different pieces of data entering into our life every day and into every transaction that we make, that driving it to a common device. So it's not sitting in a wallet. It's not a coupon left in the kitchen drawer. It's not looking for my parking ticket when I get ready to go check out.
Those are great points. In fact, if you think about not just point of sale, but point of need, delivering some of these capabilities to the consumer at the point and time when they're needed, coupled with location capabilities and intelligence and like, there are lots of powerful capabilities. So one problem I heard we're solving is the tremendous wastage. Think about those inserts in the Sunday paper for those who still get the Sunday paper, and how many of those go to waste versus the kinds of coupons and other offers and integrated solutions that were just described. Let me shift gears just a little bit. I'm intrigued. We have some experts here who have been deeply involved with Google Wallet. My understanding of Google's vision, at least based on what has been said, is to provide an open platform, quote, that supports any debit, any credit card, on any contactless enabled mobile device. It's a pretty compelling value proposition. So my question for the panelists, if you care to address it, is will we see Google Wallet on the iPhone? Or, if not, what's going to be on the iPhone?
So, that question took a little bit of a different turn than where I thought it was going. But that's okay.
I told you I wanted to mix things up a little bit.
Yeah, so it's an interesting world, right? I can only speculate. It's possible. But, I guess the way I might answer it is this. I think that, our expectation is that, Apple will, most certainly, have a play in this area around mobile commerce. And I think that it's probably safe to assume that they will do it in a uniquely Apple way, and probably a disruptive way. So we can only speculate, right, whether Google Wallet is able to, make its way into other devices and operating systems and things of that nature. But, I think...
What would make it uniquely Apple? Curious if you have some ideas or insights into what Apple might do that might be different.
Yeah. Well, I think you have to probably look at it and say, well, this is a company that has well over 160 million registered accounts, right? That from a cloud-based perspective, you could use that to create a different way of checking out, a different way of using that account. and also, drive that across an ecosystem, right? That just as, some of the other panelists, I think rightly pointed out, can, drive convenience, right? Both in terms of, a proximity payment ultimately, and as well as, anything that they might be doing, sort of across the sort of the virtual space. So, hard to say, only the folks in Cupertino really know. But I think that the reason why we're here, the reason why hopefully you folks are interested in what we're talking about is that, all of us as consumers, we pay for stuff. And we shop, right, in a way now that is fundamentally different, as has been pointed out. And the mobile is a huge part of that. So, it's simply, Apple, it's not something that Apple, as you think about the utility of the iPhone, can ignore.
Ed?
You mentioned whether we'll find Google Wallet in iPhone. I would like to also say that I think that we'll find a wallet with Microsoft. They're a huge company, a lot of innovation. They've proven themselves many, many times. So there will be a wallet with Microsoft. There will be a wallet within an iPhone device. As we know, if those that read the specs, iPhone, they have something called BT 4.0. Which basically BLE. It's I'm going to call it almost a competing technology, or I could say complementary technology, that NFC. So look for Apple to have the proximity type payment that Dom just mentioned, and we'll see what happens. We ourselves, by the way, this is a trademark. Back in almost 5 years ago, we have something called Google Wallet. Way before there was anything called Google Wallet. So our Google Wallet, our mobile wallet, is being deployed in other areas, right? So.
All right, I've got one more question, but if you have a question in the audience, if you would stand up. Yeah, I've got a variation on that. Keith, go ahead.
Well, so I think that, all of this is going to be driven by, the consumer. And so I'm not sure that there is a technology out there, whether it's the iPhone or it's the iPad, or, the consumers are going to drive it, and the payment enablement and then the whole ecosystem adoption is going to occur, and it's going to be driven from the customer back and the consumer back. So I don't think it's a matter of if, it's just a matter of when. And
Mark, I want to get one more question, and then we'll turn it over to the audience. And my last one may be a bit of a curveball as well, but I'm going to frame it in a way that I think you can respond without offending anyone. So if we think about the mobile operators and ISIS in particular, what capabilities do they bring to this endeavor that will help them compete against some very, very formidable companies that are trying to disrupt this market? So what are the capabilities that mobile operators bring that will allow them to hopefully be successful as they go forward?
I'll start. I mean, so look, I think the reality is, so a couple things. One, I think Keith makes the point, the consumer's in control, right? So my view on this, maybe it's overly simplistic, is, today, if I want to buy a new physical wallet, I go to a department store, I look in the case, I find one that has the attributes that I like, right, that can hold all my stuff, and that's the one I select. I think there's an analogy there of how this really will ultimately evolve in the digital setting, right? So there will be an offering, a shelf of digital wallets that ultimately will kind of meet up with my lifestyle and what I needed to do. I think as far as ISIS is concerned, or other providers of a digital wallet, I think it's really around, how do I package that capability, and how do I present that capability in a way that really is painfully easy, right? Achieves a level of ease and convenience in terms of my ability to adopt that wallet, all right, to get my stuff in it and put it to use for me. That unlocks some of the other kinds of value propositions that we've spoken about. The ISIS is, as it relates to that interaction with consumers as they buy mobile devices and they're kind of in the store, if you will, or, in that process and in the glow period, and the ability to kind of coach them through that activation, I think is unique because it gets to sort of easy activation, right? Takes maybe some of the friction out of this stuff and gets people started.
Good point. Could be on deck, right? Do they still use that term?
Yeah, or top of deck.
Top of deck.
Top of deck. I think that, again, this is an ecosystem play, and the carriers are very, very important, to the ecosystem. And in the payments world, you hear a lot about who's trusted and who's not trusted, and are the banks trusted. And when we did mobile banking, that was kind of the big thing. But I think that there is a level of trust that a consumer has, that if my M&O or my carrier has sponsored it and it's certified and it's on the deck and it sits at a certain level, then I really ought to look at it. I think that also, we all have to work together to stand this industry up. And so the carriers have huge brands. They have great distribution. They have a challenge because they trade customers on a monthly basis. And so, but I think that's possibly, from an ISIS perspective, something that they could capitalize on and help us as consumers know that as I move, I can transform or not really transform, but I can port my wallet over to the next device or to the next carrier. I think we'll watch that the carriers somewhat kind of create their own unique brand and their own value proposition. So I think that there's a common glue created by a JV, and I'm glad they're in the market, because I think high tide raises all ships. I think, but down to execution level, and from a consumer standpoint, they're important. They have distribution. They're trusted. They may not always be liked, but they are trusted and have a very, very important role in this ecosystem.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions from the audience?
All right. Could you use the microphone since we're recording? Certainly. A lot of the discussion that I've heard is really about the transaction of processing the payment. But I do think that there's a significant value in understanding what was on the receipt. What items were purchased, and if that's going to be part of the transition of being able to capture that information in a format that consumers can get that information, and some trusted, whoever I trust with that information would have it. Much like with Amazon, and when I go to Amazon, it knows all my purchase history, and it makes recommendations based on things that I bought in the past. But Amazon's the only person who has that information. And if that information would be valuable to other retailers or whoever's out there, so that they could provide information about products that would work well with things I've already purchased in the past.
So I'll start. So I think that there's the data that's on there kind of goes back to who am I going to trust with it, right? And so am I going to be able? Can the technology capture it? You bet, right? And so we again do that in another country, but the data can be captured. Where am I going to trust it? Am I going to go home and dock my phone and sync it up, to my own financial management software? Or am I going to trust the M&O to be the data warehouse? Or am I going to see somebody like, and I'm not leading Dom, but somebody like First Data or an FI or some independent, stand up a service, or will Google do it? But I think that data is there. The key is it's the consumer's data. Right, and so I think that'll be, one of the challenges in monetizing on the consumer's behalf, and then for us as companies being able to monetize that data, for our own, P&L.
Anyone want to add anything to that? It's an important question. How do you enrich this process and add value to the consumer? Certainly smart receipts. I don't know about you, but I tend to leave my receipts lying around, and they get lost, and electronic receipts that are available to me. I will tell you just quickly, we're looking at some 30 apps, some of which enrich the process. So, for example, you could imagine not only pulling up that app, but also having warranty information that's tied to it and a variety of other things. So if you think about the annoyances in our lives, not only grocery shopping for me, but lost receipts and the like, there are lots of them. We've learned to live with many of them, but I think there are lots of opportunities here.
Just to answer your question quickly, if you use what I call eCOMMERCE, Facebook commerce, they're doing that for you now.
The only thing I might maybe build on that is I think the importance of the merchant in that process as well, right? So then you'd probably you agree, right? I mean, at the end of the day, I totally agree with Keith. I mean, it's the consumer's data, but I think the merchant. This is where the merchant becomes really critically important in their ability to maybe enhance that shopping experience for the next time, or even while, a consumer may be in that shopping experience, right? So I may be scanning so that I can, sort of accelerate my checkout in the use case that was mentioned, but I also may be doing that because I want information, right? I might want nutrition facts if I'm in the grocery store perusing, or, if I'm in, a retailer and I'm kind of trying to choose from products, right? That SKU level insight, if it's done in a really responsible way and in a value-added way, creates really great, I think, powerful benefits for a consumer that's connected, right? And these are things that merchants are absolutely driving on when you think about the kind of technology that will make its way into the physical store, right? We've thought about the virtual space as one where we just mouse around and we click and we get information. Those kinds of advantages are available to us now with a mobile device, right? And whether it's near field communication or barcode and utilizing the networks, right? Our ability to kind of discover information and gather facts and things that enhance our shopping experience are really incredible, right? And you think about the possibilities. So I would say that data is hugely important in these value propositions that we're talking about, and merchants are absolutely on the move in trying to think about and find ways to enrich that shopping experience.
I think that's a good point. Just to imagine having Google or Bing, whatever your favorite search engine, not being available to you. I think that's the way we'll look back on mobile in 4 years. Try to imagine shopping without your mobile device. I think it'll be indispensable. Other questions from the audience?
Well, you're close and easy, so it's good.
Good to have a mic because I have no voice. So I'm Andrew Morris. I'm actually a director at Market Platform Dynamics, David Evans' firm. So that was his quote, not mine, but I'm with his firm. And I have a committee role within the National Retail Federation. So I'm interested in the retailer's point of view. And we talked about that a little bit, Dom, with the merchant's point of view. But when you think about retailers who have their own mobile apps, and they have their own loyalty programs, and they have their own payment types with gift cards and private label cards. And for each of you, could you talk a little bit about, if I'm a retailer, how do I leverage these new technologies, NFC and mobile wallets, to my best advantage, and how do I seize this opportunity?
And if you could speak to as well the corollary to that, and that is, how do I avoid being disrupted? There was a very popular article on Forbes that was, is anyone here from Best Buy? Okay, you may have seen the article because it was titled Best Buy, How Best Buy is Going Bankrupt Gradually, or something like that, Larry Downs and Forbes. So the corollary to that is, how do retailers, brick and mortar retailers, avoid being disrupted by these technologies as well? But start with the positive, please.
I'll start off just and be brief. I think it's a great question, right? And I think that what I would say is, I think the field is wide open here for retailers to to drive that experience from an app or a widget perspective. You hear people use different buzzwords, right? But at the end of the day, it's a smartphone and it's location aware. And my device will probably know that I'm in a Target store or a Best Buy or a Walmart, or frankly, even in the most local merchant, right, that I may visit on my egress to work every day, because that's where I get my coffee, my breakfast, and the like, right? So the ability to put that brand, right, via an app that is that opens because it knows where I am. I think is all out there in front of retailers, right? Versus kind of the experience, which I think also will have a lot of traction with consumers, which is an open wallet, and I put all my stuff in that, and that is the one that I use. I think there's plenty of great opportunities to ensure that brand, and by the way, the payment account that I might like to direct or guide that consumer to use, which might get them other benefits, deeper discounts, other savings, advantages, are all out there in front of a retailer to incorporate in that shopping experience.
Mark, you want to chime in on that? NCR had a lot of retail experience.
Sure. So, like you said, retailers are really struggling with this exact same issue, the closed versus open, and I don't think there's an answer. I think a lot of it, frankly, is going to come down to the brand and mass of the retailer's customer base. If you're a Walmart or a Target, you're going to have a very different approach than if you are, a mom and pop bookstore. And it's going to be increasingly harder, I think, for the smaller and smaller merchants to compete with the larger and larger merchants. They obviously have more resources and can be both open and closed. So it's depending on your size, I think your strategy is going to end up being potentially very different.
Ed? Thinking about your question, we've worked with a number of retailers to create a very immersive retail experience. So think about this. So you put a 2D barcode either in a t-shirt or a pair of shoes, but let's say a blouse, 2D barcode on a blouse. So your sister, my sister, walks inside the store, right? And let's see, and she tries it. And then from there, I'm not going to go into virtual reality immersive, right? From the app, as she tries it, because she's been there before, and she has opted in, says, by the way, most people that buy this blouse also buys this skirt. And if you press here, someone will bring it to you, right? So then that 2D barcode had something else. Let's say she also purchased was that blouse. Well, that blouse is also a coupon to a media of whatever. It could be iTunes, it could be Microsoft, a cloud-based music. It could be from anybody. It could be from Amazon, right? But now she ties that blouse to something that's emotional. That, by the way, it's probably that music probably lasts longer than her blouse, right? And then what she's going to do? She's going to tell someone about the music and about the blouse, and probably be tweeting more about the music than the blouse, right? So now you tie that with with maybe Ping, or it could be a cloud music. You name this the social network, right? Now, as she walks out, right, someone there will scan the object, right, to be able to put whether it be RFID or it be 2D barcode, and now it goes into these mobile retail. By the way, what I'm telling you is not architecture, it's things that we deliver, okay? So then from this point onward, wherever you are, now you just like in Apple, right? You want to be just like Apple, then you walk out, right? And that particular time, you can get back, do the 360 analytics.
Okay, I think we've got time for a couple more questions. Go ahead, Meryl.
All right, we'll go for, does anybody have a provocative yes-no question as our last question? We could get a yes-no, or anybody have a yes-no question? What do you think about this, or will we see this in the future? Anything like that? Can do a yes-no for our panelists? A yes-no or maybe. We'll let them do it. Yes, no, maybe, or pass.
I guess. Has any, I guess within the ecosystem, I know there's been somewhat of an impasse between the carriers, the banks, the merchants, the payment processors on divvying up the transaction fee and how people can make money off of this, because there's billions of dollars in the transaction fees themselves. So has there been any progress made in terms of how to divvy that up?
Yes. How'd I do?
That was good.
And we could talk offline, but yes.
All right.
Okay.
Meryl, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Please join me in thanking the panelists.